My name is Ahmed Rashid, and I'm a partner and senior consultant with Meirc Training and Consulting. So let me start by introducing myself. You can see my bio on the screen. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Jordan University of Science and Technology, as well as Masters in Business Administration from Southeastern Oklahoma State University. And I developed a passion for project management at an early age, and that's why I went after many certifications related to project management. As you can see on my bio, I'm certified as a project management professional, PMP, and as risk management professional from the PMI, Project Management Institute based in the US. I'm also certified as a Prince 2 registered practitioner, and this is the standard UK in project management. I'm certified also by Microsoft in using their tool software in managing projects. You will see later that these certifications can help to activate your left brain because they are more or less related to technical aspects of managing projects. The last two certifications actually has to do with the right brain because they have to do with personality assessment and understanding your team, project team members, and how to deal with them and how to motivate them. That's why I'm certified in occupational testing and personality assessment by SHL in the UK and by the British Psychological Society. I started my career working for some US entities in the area of strategic planning and project management, and then I moved to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia working in the area of planning and business development for Al Fawzan group of companies, where we had to evaluate the profitability of many investments and introduce new investments in the area. Later, I was assigned as a general manager for Arena Educational and Multicultural Complex. And while I was heading the arena, I was teaching at Amman Private University as a business admin instructor in the area of a project management. And I also started and initiated what we call a small business development center. So basically, this is like a business incubator to encourage people who have a projects to start their assist them financially and help them in managing their projects. I was also UNDP, United Nations Development Program trainer and project manager for the Middle Managers Program, where we spent training officials and managers from the UN to upgrade their competencies and prepare them for high-level management positions. Currently, I'm a partner and consultant with Meirc Training and Consulting in the area of a project management. Having said that, let us start now our webinar. In 2010, we at Meirc Training and Consulting led a regional research in 6 GCC countries as well as other 6 Arab countries. The research actually involved interviewing more than 300 outstanding functional and project managers to understand the reason for the success in their careers. And the result was published in a book by the name of Developing Multicultural Leaders. The interesting part, however, of the study showed that majority of the managers stated that they succeeded in their roles because they were able to manage their project tasks and lead their project teams. The aim of our webinar is to show how we can deliver successful projects by managing project tasks and leading project teams. As shown on the slide, our webinar will be divided into 3 sections or topics. We will talk about the project management and its relation to the 2 hemispheres of the brain, and then we'll move into managing project tasks and how to lead project teams. The webinar will take almost like 30 minutes, and then we will allow for questions and answers at the end of the webinar, which approximately will take another 30 minutes. So I hope you are ready for an interesting webinar. Let us start by topic 1. What is the relation between project management and the 2 hemispheres of the brain? I really want to start by doing a quick survey here. So I want to invite you to make a choice now. The question is, in order to manage a project successfully, we need to depend more on. Please make your choice, either left brain or B, right brain, or C, equally on both parts of the brain. I will give you 20 seconds starting from now to make a choice. So let me share the results with you now. As you see, the majority of you chose is equally in both parts of the brain, and I hope that you did this choice based on understanding of the hemispheres of the left and right brain. Let me share with you that this is the correct answer. And during the webinar, you'll see that C is actually, the correct answer, because in project management, we need to use both parts of our brain. So back to our slide here. As you can see, the left brain has to do with logic, language, numbers, analysis, linearity, and these are all functions that we use and we need in project management. While the right brain has to do with imagination, empathy, your emotional intelligence. Your IQ is more related to the left hemisphere, but your EQ, which is your emotional quotient and your emotional intelligence, is based on your right hemisphere. 10 years ago, when you wanted to submit for a job as a project manager, they will ask you to sit for an IQ test. And trust me, the IQ, the higher the IQ, this is where you get inside the organization. But in order to promote yourself and start your career in a project management, your IQ is not enough anymore. We need to move into, your EQ, your emotional, your communication, the empathy you show to your project team. So why the use of both parts of our brains? Let us first have a quick look at the functions. If you look at the functions of the left brain, they are all related to technical aspects of a project management. They involve calculations like developing logic charts, network diagrams, while the right brain functions can assist in leading your project teams, understanding them, motivating them. Project teams of flesh and blood and feelings cannot be only controlled. You need to use your right brain to motivate them, coach them, and lead them. If you look at the next slide, this is where majority of us are familiar with what we call the project constraints. And I'm sure many of us are familiar with the term triple constraints or iron triangle, which can be summarized by STC, which stands for scope, time, and cost. They always claimed in project management, if you want to deliver a successful project, they need to achieve the scope and achieve the project within the assigned time and assigned budget. But nowadays, I'm adding to it other aspects as well and other constraints. Our project teams and resources are the ones who handle the project task. We cannot afford anymore to manage the basic constraints using our left brain and forget to tackle the rest of the constraints that need our right brain, such as resources and risk, where you need to show creativity, you need to show understanding, and this is part of your right brain. So what is the difference between project management and project leadership? A project management is all about managing your project tasks, such as controlling the task, directing the team, organizing the tasks and assignments, and planning and using planning tools. On the other hand, management and leadership of your project is all about leading your project team, such as coaching them, motivating them, building them. We will highlight some functions related to project tasks, such as controlling and planning, and we will also talk about some aspects related to project team and how to lead them, related to team building and motivating them. So the project management body of knowledge, which they call the PMBOK, and which is the PMI, Project Management Institute standard for managing projects, tackle both management and leadership, project management and project leadership, through introducing 10 knowledge areas related to a project. And they claim to master the project management, you need to master the knowledge areas. So you need both parts of the brain, the left and the right brain, because these knowledge areas include, for example, leadership, human resources. They include the communication, which is again part of managing and leading your project team. But they also include procurement area, planning area, scope management, integration management, which is the technical part of your project, and this is where you need your left brain. The Prince2, which is the methodology used by the UK government, and Prince2, by the way, stands for Projects in Controlled Environment. They focus more on a project task through introducing phases and gates that need to be controlled during project life. Now, which is better? Is it the American standard or the British standard? Actually, each one of them has its own advantages, but I can see that the American standard, which is the PMI standard, focus more on both parts of the brain, on functions relating to left brain and right brain as well. While the British standard, they focus more on the left brain functions, such as controlling your project tasks and controlling the gates of the project. To have a further look at the differences between them, you can see on the screen now that if you are a project manager, then you are a good planner, organizer, coordinator, and you are involved in the day-to-day operations, as we say. But when you are a project leader, then you are having the vision, you are challenging, you are inspiring your team, developing your people. And you see that all those functions listed under project manager are all functions that require planning, analysis, logic, and this is again related to left brain. While the functions listed under the project leader, they are all functions related to right brain because they have to do with communication, empathy, inspiring your team, and such. So looking at more differences, project management is all about, being task oriented, system oriented. So you depend on your left brain. But on the other hand, project leadership is all about being people oriented, and that's why you depend more on your right brain. So in summary, a project manager uses his or her left brain to do things right, but they use their right brain to do the right things. In a project management to succeed, you definitely need to do the right things, but do them the right way as well. So this is why we need both parts of the brains. I just want to end this section by sharing with you a typical definition of a project management and see how does this definition relates to our discussion about left and right brain. So according to the UK-based project management standard, which is managing successful projects with Prince2, the 2009 edition, this is how they define the project management. They say project management is the planning, delegating, monitoring, and controlling all aspects of the project. And if you look at these tasks and functions, they are related to left brain. When you talk about planning, monitor, and control, this is where you need to use logic, reason, and you need to use analysis as well. So again, left brain. The rest of the definition relates actually to right brain because it talks about the motivation of those who are involved in the project in order to achieve the project objectives within the expected performance targets. So to succeed in a project, so you need both parts of your brain, your left and your right brain. What I will do now, I will start telling you about how to manage your project tasks using your left brain, and then after that we'll talk about how to lead your project teams using your right brain. And by the end of the webinar, I promise you I will share with you some fun and good approach on how to activate your right brain and make sure that you are using it in leading your project teams. So let us start now managing project tasks. I divided managing project tasks based on my humble experience in project management into 3 basic tasks. So you need to do planning, scheduling, and control. Now, planning has to do with what to do. So you need to come up with a list of the activities that you will be working on during your project. This is not enough. You need to schedule your activities. So scheduling has to do with when to do. This is where you estimate the duration of every activity in your project. And then you need to make sure that you are monitoring and controlling your tasks. So that basically means comparing your actual progress, your actual achievements, your plans and baselines. So let us start with the first section, which is planning. A planning usually is done using a very famous tool that many project professionals are using nowadays, which is WBS. Now, WBS stands for Work Breakdown Structure. I'm not going to share with you how to write a WBS. I assume that many of you are already there and they know how to develop a WBS. But in a planning project task, we need to depend more on the left brain because when you are developing your work breakdown structure, it means that you want to have work packages and activities and start assigning resource and cost for every single activity in your work breakdown structure. The process itself involves a lot of calculation and logical approach, and that's why this is where your left brain will be activated when you are working on your WBS. The WBS usually can go down to 6 levels, and this is where you can organize your WBS by function, marketing, business development and such, or you can organize it geographically by cities, or you can organize it by experience. It depends. But also sometimes you might use your right brain that has to do with the creativity to start brainstorming what activities will be included in my project. So usually we use a technique that we call decomposition technique. Decomposition technique means breaking down your project objective into smaller work packages, work tasks, and make sure that by achieving the tasks, you are achieving your project objective. If you depend on what we call template technique, then you are using already a template that exists for a similar project and you are using it for your project. You can see on the next slide some guidelines and checklists on how to develop a WBS. The point is, when you are developing the WBS, you need to be very organized, you need to be very logical, because the WBS will be the first step in managing your project. Anything goes wrong with the WBS, it will build up during the project and it will affect your project performance at later stages. So for accuracy purposes, the WBS should be taken down several levels, and you need to include as much as possible of the project stakeholders in developing the WBS to make sure that you never forget any of the tasks included in the project. Now we move to the scheduling part. As we said, scheduling is all about taking the tasks that you already developed in your work breakdown structure and then making sure that you are estimating their durations and the predecessor relationships, which means how they are linked to each other. So people today tend to acquire scheduling software like Microsoft or Primavera, and they think that this will make them instant project managers. Honestly, this is not a good idea. In fact, it is nearly impossible to use software unless you understand the project management. We all agree that deadline has to be met for every project. We all also agree that it is very easy to create schedules that look good on paper but don't work in practice. To make scheduling effective, this is where you depend heavily on your left brain. Let me share with you some reasons for scheduling. The deadline has to be met for every project. We know that. And we know that the priorities keep changing during project. So to help you in scheduling techniques, let me share some scheduling techniques with you. When we started scheduling, we depended heavily on what we call Gantt charts. And Gantt charts was developed by engineer Henry Gantt in the US, and that's why they named it Gantt charts. But initial Gantt charts or bar charts were very difficult to determine the impact on any activity if a slip will happen on one of the activities. So later on, they introduced the concept of critical path method. And critical path method, as many of you are familiar, is all about looking at the critical activities in your project. So usually it is the longest duration of the project, the longest path in your project. So you can never finish the project in shorter time than the total time of the critical path. And I always summarize critical path method in 5 simple steps. Step number 1, you need to create the WBS. Number 2, you need to draw the project network, which I will show you a sample in a while. Then number 3, you need to do forward calculation to get the total project time. And step number 4, you do backward calculation to get the critical path and to determine the slacks of every activity on your WBS. And then the last 5th step is all about doing your bar charts to summarize all of the previous steps. So in the 5 steps, you see that we will be using our left brain more. There is some steps that require some creativity, but it will be all limited to your creating the WBS. Once you create the WBS, the rest of the steps will be by default logical steps in order to come up with your bar chart. You can also see the technique PERT. PERT actually stands for Project Evaluation and Review Technique, or Problem Evaluation and Review Technique. It was developed by the US Navy and Booz Allen and Hamilton Consulting Group in the 1950s, and nowadays they call it a 3-point estimate. Now, PERT is similar to the critical path method. The only difference is when you don't know the duration of the activities on your WBS, so you estimate the duration using the PERT, which means you go ask subject matter experts and you take the weighted average of their opinion. So you take the most likely opinion, the pessimistic one, and the optimistic one, and then you apply a weighted average formula in order to come with an estimated duration of the activity. You can do the same for every activity in your WBS. PERT can give you more accurate estimation of your activities durations because it is using a weighted average approach. Now you can have a look here at a sample of the network diagram, and you can see that the network diagram here, it's basically how to represent your WBS. To represent your WBS, you need to draw some boxes, some nodes, and some links between the activities to see how they are linked to each other. So we have 2 methods of how to draw a project network. The first one is what we call activity on node network, which is being used in every software and in every book, maybe in a project management. This is where you have the activities as nodes, and you link between them, and you have all the numbers related to every activity inside this node or this box. Another approach of drawing a project network is what we call activity on arrow network, and they refer to it as AOA network. This is similar to the activity on node. The only difference is that you are using points to represent the activities, and you are also placing the activities on top of the arrow. We prefer the first model in project network because it's simpler, it's easier and simpler to represent your WBS using the first model, where all the numbers will be contained within the box of the activities. And later on, you will decide about the relationships between the activities, if they have finish to start relationship, start to start, or finish to finish, or start to finish. So we call these logical relationships or predecessor assignments, because every activity in your WBS will depend on another activity, and the logic dependencies will help you to estimate the total duration of your project and of your activities. Having said that, now let us move to the last function, which has to do with monitoring and controlling. Now, a control system should focus on response. If control data do not result in action, then the system is ineffective. And if a control system does not use deviation data to initiate corrective action, then it is not really a control system, but simply a monitoring system. Our system is the system that works for projects. I always advise participants in our project management workshops to make sure that they customize their monitoring and controlling system. So make sure that it is scaled down for small projects and beefed up for large ones. So I always tell them how to customize. You can come up with any monitoring and controlling system as long as you make sure that it will involve taking corrective actions and preventive actions as well. You know, in engineering, they always taught us the difference between two mechanical devices. One is thermometers and the other one is thermostats. Thermometers are devices for reading temperatures, so they are more reactive. They take reactive response, and that's why they are involved only in corrective actions. But you know, a thermostat is a device for controlling temperature. You set the temperature that you want, and it will automatically adjust the temperature based on the standard that you set. So it involves more preventive actions, and that's where you are being more proactive. So remember, in a monitor and control system, you need to make sure that the system itself includes steps that will ensure that you take sometimes corrective actions, and sometimes you need to take proactive actions and preventive actions. So in short, you need to be acting like thermostat and thermometers when you are doing the monitoring and controlling process. In the next slide, you can see some characteristics of a project control system, where you need to start asking yourself, what is the most important thing to my organization? Is it to make sure that I develop the right scope for my project? Is it to make sure that I don't miss my deadline, or to make sure that I don't exceed my budget? And you need to make sure that based on developing these areas, you will come up with certain KPIs, key performance indicators, that you will be monitoring and controlling during your projects. So remember, those KPIs that you will develop, it will help you to tell you where you are standing and to evaluate the performance in the past, and it will help you to do some forecasting to the future. So many of you are familiar with the schedule performance index and cost performance index, which has to do with the past KPIs that measure the performance related to schedule and budget in the past. But also you need to do some forecasting for the future, where you use something like estimate at completion and like final forecasted completion time. So remember, you need sometimes to have improvement of your performance, and that's why sometimes you have two kinds of reviews. A status review is aimed at maintenance. It asks where the project stands, the past, as I said earlier. But a process reviews means the way something is done, and you can be sure that the process always affects your task performance. So we cover now three tasks related to the left brain and to managing your project tasks, which is scheduling and monitoring and controlling, and as well as we said that you need to make sure that you are also organizing your task. So keep them in mind. Planning, scheduling, monitoring, and controlling are the tasks that you need to use to manage your project task, and they are all related more or less to your left brain, and that's why you need to activate your left brain to make sure that you are planning, scheduling, and monitoring and controlling your task. Now we move to the interesting part, which is basically how to lead your project teams. So to do that, actually, there are two ideas that I want to share with you. First, you need to make sure that you are developing your team. And when you are developing your team, you need to make sure that you are creating synergy. Both activities need the use of our right brain and not left brain because they are not about logic, they are not about numbers, and they are about feelings, emotions, about being creative and building and motivating your project team. And that's why you need your right brain. So let us start with team development and team building and tell you how can you create synergy using your right brain with your project teams. Team building is an important activity that can make the project team move from being a group to being a more matured and high-performing project teams. We don't want members who are only involved in the project because they have to be, but we want committed members that are more mature in terms of their psychological and job maturity and psychological maturity. To do that, you need to start thinking, how can I motivate my team? How to coach each one of them? So team building is a journey. It's a process that you always need to keep your eyes on it to make sure that you are building the team and a high performing team. Let me show you the difference between someone who is managing his team and someone who is leading his team. If you manage your team and try to build the team using your left brain, you'll end up having a group and not a team. If you lead your team using your right brain, then you will end up having a high performing team. And what is the difference between group and team? Let us have a look. Under a group, the goal is to share information, only sharing information. But under the team, the goal is to share the information and make sure that they enhance their performance based on the information that they are sharing. In a group, the synergy usually is neutral and sometimes negative in a sense where group members they start fighting, they start having conflicts with each other because they are not working as team members but more as group members. Under a team, the synergy is always positive, and you'll see that by positive it means that everyone contributes to the performance of the team. Everyone has a significant effort that they will contribute to the performance of the team. Under accountability, the accountability in a group is individual, meaning that every project team member is responsible for their individual performance. But under a team, the accountability is individual and mutual, which means that your individual performance is not where you need to worry about only, but you need to worry about also other team members' performance. So the KPIs will be individual KPIs and team KPIs. Really, number 4 summarizes the whole story between the differences between group and team. The skills you can see under group are random and varied, which means sometimes they are conflicting each other, meaning that we are all skilled at the same area and the same thing, but we are not complementing each other as under a team. Under a team, the team member skills are complementary, which means that I complement your weakness as a team member and you complement my weakness as a team member. If you want to create synergy, if you want to have positive synergy, then you need to have complementary skills. And if you want to have complementary skills and build your team, definitely you will need your right brain in order to create this positive atmosphere and environment in your project. So it is the project manager or project professional role to make sure that the resources assigned to the project are working as teams and not as groups. Trust me, working as a group can help you for a short period of time, but in the long term, you will see that the turnover will be high. You will see that the team members will not be happy and their performance, of course, will be affected. In a sense, creating project team synergy is all about 1 plus 1 equals more than 2. Mathematically, we all been taught in school that 1 plus 1 equals 2, which means that if I work individually and you work individually and working together will not add anything. But when I work in a team, my contribution and your contribution should add to a greater value. So synergy basically is the sum of the whole being greater than the sum of the individual part. And that's why if you work as a group, then 1 plus 1 will always be equal to 2. But when you work as a team, then 1 plus 1 becomes more than 2, more than 3, more than 11 maybe. In a sense, I always use a very nice acronym for the word team. Team stands for together everyone achieves more. When you are working together, 1 plus 1 should be more than 3. And you can do that by making sure that there are synergistic efforts in the team and you are leading the team the right way. Have a look now at some characteristics of a high performing project teams. I summarized 5 must characteristics for every project team to succeed. First, you need to have a common purpose, and this is your responsibility as a project manager to make sure that there is a common purpose. So you need to develop the SMART objectives, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time related. And this is the duty of the project manager to make sure that the SMART objectives are agreed between the team members. Then you need to clarify the roles and responsibilities of every single individual in your project team. We use tools such as Build Bin, Inventory, in order to understand the roles and responsibilities of every team member. And then you need to provide effective leadership, situational leadership, based on the maturity level of your team members, and based on the situation you choose a leadership style, which I will summarize now when we talk about the team development stages. And then you want to make sure that you have open communication, effective communication, solid relationships between team members, which means that you need to promote transparency. You need to promote that everyone has contribution to the team, and the values of the team and the norms of the team. Let me finish this section by sharing with you what we call team development stages. It was Bruce Tuckman, a psychologist, in 1965 who came up with the idea that in order to have a high-performing team, you need to understand the team development stages. So I want to guide you on these development stages and related to how can you lead your project teams using these stages. So please do remember that teams do not grow into high performance teams automatically. To assume so is very naive on the part of the project manager. Teams must be developed quickly when they are formed to solve complex problems, and team development stages can help you to do that. So the team development stages are actually summarized into 5 stages. Let me start with the first one. Whenever you have a project, you start by assigning the team, and this is when you enter into what we call forming the team. Under forming, you'll see that the roles and responsibilities are not clear at the beginning, and that's why the attitude of team members are, some of them will be polite, some of them will be anxious. They don't know exactly if this was the right decision for them to participate in the project, to be part of your project. So that's why we recommend a leadership style which we call directing or telling leadership style. Basically, as a project manager, you will be directing your project team members because their maturity level is low. And by maturity level, I mean their psychological maturity, their confidence maybe, their motivation level, and their job maturity, which relates to their job knowledge, experience, is very low at the beginning. So you use with them what we call directing leadership style. It's a style based on a one-way communication between the leader, project leader, and between the project team members. And also, the decision-making process will be always in the hands of the team leader. After that, your team start becoming more mature and they start causing you some problems. So that's why you enter into storming phase. Storming, from the word storm, it will include a lot of conflicts, a lot of lobbying. They conflict and they fight over responsibilities, over resources, the project team members. So your attitude will be different here as a team leader. Your leadership style will be different. That's why we recommend a selling leadership style, which we call sometimes coaching leadership style. This is where the leader needs to sell decisions on the roles, on the assignments, on how to perform the task. So it's different from stage number 1 in the sense that it's becoming more a two-way communication, more a democratic approach in leading your project team. But at the same time, the decision making is still in the hands of the leader to make sure that tasks are being accomplished. Now, moving to the third step, norming, from the word norms, behaviors, everything will become normal. Team are becoming more and more mature now. They accept authority of the leader. They develop a greater commitment to goals. So that's why we encourage you to use what we call supporting leadership style or participative leadership style, where team members and leaders, they will contribute and participate in making decisions in a two-way communication model. And then after that, you move with the team into what we call performing stage. Be all what you can be. This is where the attitude of the team members are that they are supportive, they are committed, and that's why you need to use delegating with them. Delegation means that you monitor the process, but you let them decide on their assignments, you let them decide on their duties, because they are highly mature now, they know what they are supposed to do, and your role is more or less just to monitor their progress and help them, assist them if they need any help or problem. In any project, there will be a time when the project will be over, and this is where you start the adjourning stage. Under adjourning stage, the tasks will be completed. The team members' attitudes will differ here, because if the team members liked each other, they will welcome to work with each other in the future on future projects. If they did not like to work with each other, then during your project, they will be reluctant to join your team again on future projects. The leadership style that we promote here is a celebrative one, because success should be celebrated and recognized, and that's why we are recommending it. I really want to finish this webinar by sharing with you a fun but yet a very effective approach on how to activate your right brain. Left brain, I'm sure it is activated because, you know, our daily life, we always depend on our left brain. We always do numbers in a project, we develop bar charts, we develop networks and such, but my worry will be more on activating your right brain. So what I will do, I will show you some pictures on the screen, and I want you kindly to send me what are you seeing exactly. The ability to see more than one image, more than one picture in every slide, that means that your right brain is started to work well, it is activated. If you only can see the things that anyone can see, then this is where you're still depending on your left brain. So let me start by showing you the following, and I'll give you a few seconds. Please send me what things are you seeing? What are the images that you are seeing? I will give you a few seconds. I want to see what are you seeing. Just tell me, are you seeing, someone said columns, I can see. Someone saying faces, okay, this is normal. Facing each other, very good. Anyone can see something, even if you see something that no one is seeing. A cup, very good. So see now, the ability to see more than one thing, this is what activates your right brain. If you can only see the pillars and the cups, then this is the left brain. But if you can see more than one thing at the same time, this is where you can you are activating your right brain. Why? Because right brain has to do with putting yourself in other people's shoes, placing yourself in different positions, looking at things from different perspective and angle. So if you want to activate your right brain, you start looking at things, even if you can't see what your colleagues now are seeing, but at least you started to look at things in a different way. Let me show you another one. That will be interesting now. I want you to look and tell me exactly what are you seeing now. We've been taught all our life to read black print on white paper. Many of you now are sending that we are seeing, you know, people facing each other and trees. They are using again their left brain. This is where you are reading the black on white. But if you read the white on black, you'll start seeing not the arrow, Ibrahim, not the house, Umar, but Lena now got it, fly. The word fly, can you see the word fly? When you read the white on the black, then you can see very clearly the word in capital letters, F-L-Y. And this is what's happening. Now you are looking at things from different angle. So your right brain is activated because you look at things from different angle. So if someone tells you it's a maze, it's a column, they are right. If someone tells you it's a fly, they are right. But when you have your right and left brain activated, this is where you are looking at the complete picture and you become a complete project manager. I'll challenge you with 3 more, and I think this will be very interesting before we start the Q&A. Very quickly now, tell me, what do you see? What do you see? A woman in the eyes, very good. I bet that every one of you can see a human skull, Firas, but I want now to look at different angles. Omar can see a moon, that's very creative, Omar. Rasha Khalifa can see a woman. How about 2 women? Very good, Rami. Now you can see it. It could be a human skull, and it could be 2 women, you know, 2 women facing each other. If you can't see, just concentrate on the eyes. You see that in the eyes there is a shadow of a woman and another woman facing it. So it can be two women. If you don't see it, cat, I wonder if there is a cat. A third person, that's Ibrahim, your right brain is 100% activated now. Let me show you very quickly another one. And don't tell me woman now. Let's see. What do you see now? Another one. Amber, what do you see? Woman holding a cat. Rasha, a woman. Okay. A woman's face. Anyone can see a map. A map, Vinod. Very good. So it could be the world map and it could be a pretty face of a pretty woman. The last one I will show you, it's really a classical one. I'm sure maybe some of you have seen it before. It's hard, but I'll leave it to you to see if your right brain now is working well or not. Let me show you the last one. There are two images. If you can see the two images, then you can safely say that both parts of your brain are working well, the left and the right one. So I'll give you a few seconds. Tell me, what do you see? The face. I can read some of your comments. See, pretty face. Can you all see the young lady? Can you all see the young lady? Alice is seeing cat. That's very creative, Alisar. Okay, old lady. Abdurrahman, very good. You are seeing the old lady. If you can't see the old lady, then you are only seeing the lady. Again, this is part of your left brain. Right brain, where you look at things from different perspective, from different angle. If you don't see the old lady, I would really recommend that you later on, when we post this webinar on the net, have a closer look at it. It could be a young lady or it could be a very old lady. Regardless of how you look at it, if you look at things from more than one angle, then you are activating both parts of your brain. Remember, we need a complete project manager that uses both parts of the brain to succeed in delivering their projects. I will open now the Q&A session and ask you kindly, if you have any questions, to send it through to me so that we can answer it in 20 minutes before we end our webinar. Any questions, please send it through to me and I'll be more than happy to answer it. Any questions? Abdullah Al-Houri, how can you practice using the right brain? Very good question, Abdullah. What happens, you can Google and there are many physical exercises that you can do, physically exercises, early morning, even breathing techniques that can help to activate your right brain. And actually, the images that I showed you, I can later send you more images if you are interested. Looking at different images and trying to look at each image from different angle can activate your right brain, as well as trying to solve those nice mind openers that sometimes are posted on the net. So basically two things. You can look at mind openers and you can do physical exercises in order to activate your right brain. Sovish is asking about selling decision. Actually, this is a leadership style. We call it selling decisions because, you know, the project team leader need to sell the decision to the team members, not only dictate to them what they need to do, but they sell them the idea that this is the right decision. So we call it sometimes a coaching style because you are coaching team members in order to be more mature. So in essence, when you are selling the decision to your team members, that means that you are taking a decision and you want to promote the decision to them. So that's why we are calling it selling decisions. Abdullah is saying, can projects be longer than 6 years? Definitely, Abdullah, but the level of managing them will be also more complicated. When the project duration exceeds 1 year, we call it a larger project, and sometimes it could be called a program. A program actually is a project, a big one that is divided into phases or into sub-projects. So it can be more than 6 years, but my worries is if it wasn't the original plan that it should be 6 years, then that means that your project is getting out of control or the scope is getting out of control and you need to have a good control system. But if originally the project was planned for 6 years, then this is maybe the normal, and you need to make sure how to plan and manage your projects. So this is what we start calling a program, which is a collection of a project. Wesovic actually is asking, is there a demerit or demerits on the right brain approach? Well, when you become too creative, people sometimes will tell you that you are crazy. Remember Einstein? Remember Newton? Everyone was looking at the apple. The apple is falling. Everyone is saying that this is a normal apple. But Newton was looking at things from a different perspective. Galileo, for example, he was executed because he was using his right brain and he was created. So I would say that the demerit, the only disadvantage of using your right brain is people will not be on the same page as you are in. Mr. Rashid, what is the percentage usage of right in a normal project? That's a very good question again, Mr. Rashid. Actually, there is no statistics here, but I can share with you that during the early stages of your project, you need to be very creative because you are planning for your project, because you are developing your work breakdown structure. So you need to depend more on your right brain. And then during execution, monitor, control, closing your project, this is where you use more your left brain. I wouldn't say a percentage of 50-50 or 60-40, but many people depend more on left brain when they are managing a project. I would say that try to use the right brain at the early stages. Try to use it when you are motivating your team members, and then don't forget that you still need to use your left brain in calculations. I can see that Abdullah is saying, is using the right brain similar to being out of the box? Yes, exactly, Abdullah. When you are thinking outside the box, this is where you are using your right brain. Ziad Zaabne is talking about to what extent we should depend on firing a team member. I wouldn't say, firing a team member. You need your role as a project team there is to make sure that you do the effort to build them, to build their competencies, to try to coach them on the model I shared with you. So start by dictating to them what they need to do, directing leadership style, move them into delegating a gradual process. If you end up having this team member affecting the whole team, maybe then you need to do something about it and check your human resource department. Okay, Rami, thank you for your comment. Again, Vinod, please suggest reference. I will do that, Bavara. You can have my email. It's listed on the email sent earlier to you. So I would be, and I can write it for you right now. You can send me an email just about the things that you need, and I will make sure that I will send it to you as more references and such. So my email is arashid@meirc.com. I'm sending it to the whole group. And the slides also will be posted hopefully today on the net so that you can have a copy of the slides. Any more questions? I think, Lena, I missed one question here. What is the best lifetime of a project? If you're referring, Lena, to the life as the duration of the project, it depends on the size of the project. It depends on the outcomes, the deliverables of the project, if this is what I understood from your project. Thank you, Vinod. Okay, we'll allow for a few minutes if anyone has any questions. Okay. So I think that's it. Thank you, all of you. Again, it was wonderful having this webinar, and I look forward to have a future webinar. In the meantime, if you need anything, my email is there. Ramadan Kareem to everyone, and thank you so much. I look forward to receive your emails and comments, hopefully. So thank you so much. We are ending this webinar now, and wish you a lovely day ahead. Thank you so much.
Meirc.com